Time now for a bright spot.
I'm doing all right, getting good grades. The future's so bright. I gotta wear shades.
Well, there's a rapper out of Britain named Zuby. I'm sure you're familiar with Zuby.
Oh, absolutely. I
Yeah,
follow him on Instagram and
you're
what's the other thing?
You're
The
lying.
Snapchat
Yeah.
and the
He
the
also
YouTube.
Zuby also hosts a podcast, Real Talk with Zuby. Here's what's interesting about him: his politics don't match what you would think. A black rapper from England, he's got to be leftist, right? No, he's not. Here's what he wrote on Twitter this week, and I think it's a bright spot. Many Western countries are evolving into authoritarian regimes in real time, but people are so convinced by the illusions of freedom and democracy, they outright refuse to admit what's happening. The cognitive dissonance is off the charts. The ego won't allow it. Europe alone has seen the rise of multiple authoritarian regimes over the past few centuries. It is arrogant and foolish to assume history is over and that it can't happen here. It absolutely can. Human nature has not changed. Have a plan B if you value liberty.
Oh, that's
It's pretty interesting stuff.
That's founding father
It is.
type language because we're on a slippery slope.
Right.
And folks don't understand just how slippery this slope is.
We've given up right after right after right over the past year and a half. He's right on.
and to get it back, by the way,
Yeah.
it's going to involve bloodshed.
Okay, so interesting.
Is that too much?
Maybe. Hopefully it doesn't. I mean, that's why we're doing this radio show, is so that we can try and get some of this back
Exactly.
without bloodshed.
Or try to prevent the further erosion of
Right.
our liberties.
But you mentioned that it sounds like a founding father. Here's what he also wrote. The only country in the West that is largely protected against totalitarianism is the USA. And that's because of the Second Amendment. UK, Europe, Australia, Canada, Austria, New Zealand, all ultimately reliant on the benevolence or wickedness of their leaders. He's saying the only reason why the U.S. isn't in as quite of a deep a danger as all the European countries are is because we have the Second Amendment. This is a black rapper in England saying this.
And yet, for those in our country who are advocating for the abolition or the erosion, the further erosion of our Second Amendment, the question is, do they realize what history has taught us?
Well, I think they think they're on the right side of history, so obviously they're ignoring history.
No. What they think.
Yeah.
I'm asking, what do they know
as-
about history?
As Reagan said, so much of what our friends know on the left just isn't so.
Because if they spent an hour with folks, and I'm not talking about the drug dealers or the human traffickers,
Right.
I'm talking about with people who come to this country because they're pursuing the American dream. If they would spend an hour with some of those folks, they'd understand how valuable liberties, rights like the Second Amendment are for us all.
Zuby also made headlines earlier this year when he released a list that went viral, 20 things I've learned or had confirmed about humanity during the pandemic. Let me just go through a couple. We don't have time for all 20. One, most people would rather be in the majority than be right. I think it's true.
Peer pressure.
Yeah. Fear of death is only rivaled by the fear of social disapproval. The latter could be stronger.
Again, they don't want to be shamed.
Number 10 on this list, when sufficiently frightened, most people will not only accept authoritarianism, but demand it. Number 12, most people value safety and security more than freedom and liberty, even if said security is merely an illusion. 15, the science has evolved into a secular pseudo-religion for millions of people in the West. This religion has little to do with science itself.
Just propaganda.
Last one, it's easier to fool a person than to convince them they have been fooled. Guys, you got to check out Zuby. He's pretty interesting.
How do you spell that?
Zuby.